I'm looking at my notes and I was like, why is Toto keeping his face neutral? That's what my note says. Toto keeping face neutral. Why is Toto keeping his face neutral at the end of the race when they have a Mercedes 1-2 and they've been doing so bad for years? It's almost like the American race for president. You know, every week somebody's getting shot or sat down. Okay, help me to understand what is going on. I'm a newbie. I just started watching F1 this year in 2024. Hey people, it's Kim Muse coming back at you. Okay, help me to understand what is going on. I'm a newbie. I just started watching F1 this year in 2024. I did not watch the race in real time because I was watching the NBA try to fend off Serbia in basketball, which, what the hell is that? That's a video for another day. So I watched the video, I watched the race later, a couple hours later, and I'm like, you know, Lewis is tight, right, because he didn't win, and I was a little tight, but I was also like, well, fair play to George. He wants to be seen by Toto. He knows that Kimi Antonelli is likely coming to the team, and he knows that Toto has his eye out on Max, and, you know, he's on his little, like, see me. So he was seen, right? He was scrappy. He did his one stop, and I was like, okay, well, you know, fair play to him. It is what it is. And then I'm like, okay, well, you know, I had made my little notes. You know, I had made notes that, like, Lewis and George weren't really talking after the fact. Like, they were on separate sides of the wall when they had to go speak to the F1 people. And there was another thing that I had seen. There's a video that I saw on YouTube by some other F1 YouTuber that showed the video where they arrived at Spa on their private plane with some of the Mercedes staff. And so all the, you know, like marketing people and, you know, other folk get off carrying bags, and then George gets off, and then Lewis gets off last with his man purse. And Lewis daps up everybody, hops in his S-Class, and drives off. And he didn't speak to George, not even like a little dap, peace out, nothing. And I was like, oh, that's a little strange. I mean, yes, they had been on the plane together, but I'm sure they weren't on the plane kikiing together, like eating Cheetos together. So I'm like, oh, that's a little odd that he wasn't even just like, you know, goodbye. But whatever, right? So at the end of the race, I made a note in my phone, and I was like, oh, Toto didn't, you know, really smile or clap or anything. Normally, like when one of his, you know, drivers wins, I mean, he's not effusive all the time, but he at least is like a smile and a clap, nothing. And then I looked and I was like, oh, Toto didn't come down to the podium. And then they showed Toto on the F1 stream, and he was like back in the garage FaceTiming someone. But he looked like he was, you know, like smiling a little bit during the FaceTime. So I was like, oh, you know, like he's talking to someone, whatever. And I was like, well, let me just go ahead and do my video now, because I normally like wait till like the next day. And I hopped online, and then my favorite YouTuber for F1, Cameron F1, was already up talking about George was disqualified. And I was, you know, what? Okay. I know that they go and they spot check cars after the fact. To make sure that everybody is within regulations. But my first question is, like, why don't they do that before they do the podium? Because it's messy, right? If you find that somebody is not within the regulations after you've already done the podium, then you have to strip them of the whole, like, podium experience and take back the trophy and the hats and things. It's just messy. Like, who does that? Like, how long does it take to, you know, measure or weigh a car? That's number one. Number two, why was his car 1.5 kilograms underweight? Don't they drive the same car? So when you take the fuel out, should not the cars be essentially almost the same weight? I know, like, tires make a difference, and he didn't change his tires. So he would have worn, you know, some of the rubber, but like 1.5 kilograms worth of rubber. Other thing is, like, who decides, like, that they get to do a one stop? And I know, like, Lewis and George and the strategy team had talked about all of this beforehand. So who decided that George could get to do a one stop and Lewis would not get to do a one stop? And why would you not tell Lewis that George was going to do the one stop until it was almost too late for him to do anything about it. And Lewis even asked Bono, like, how fast do I need to go to beat him? And Bono's response was, it's close. It's very close. No numbers, no metrics of any kind. So I hate to ascribe agenda to people, especially negative agenda, because I just don't like to do it. But when people keep showing you their negative agenda, at a certain point, you have to just be like, okay, it is what it is. But when you plot for bad, sometimes it blows up in your face. Because even Toto's response afterwards was like, oh, we have to take this on the chin. We made a mistake. Well, what mistake did you make, Toto? What was the mistake? And then he tries to misdirect and be like, well, Lewis was deserving. He was the fastest two-stop. And it's summer break, so, we're going to look at some things and come back. Like, it was a very weird statement. We made a mistake. How was his car 1.5 kilograms underweight? How is that? I just, it smacks of some other things being at play. I just don't understand why they just aren't just more upfront. Listen, I know that they're mad. The people who are plotting and planning against Lewis, which obviously that's, some people on the team. I wouldn't say half. I don't know if it's all of George's people. I don't know how deeply George is involved, if at all. But Lewis is not George's problem. Like, if the point is to show up Lewis, they're aiming at the wrong target. Because Lewis is essentially 1 foot into Ferrari at this point. And Mercedes is not close enough to win anything. And nor are George and Lewis, really. So if they're aiming at trying to make Lewis look bad, that's not what they need to be worrying about. George needs to go ahead and learn how to win against Lewis fairly. Because when Kimi Antonelli or Max Verstappen or whoever else comes on that Mercedes team, they're not going to be able to sabotage and plot and plan against that person. See, for some reason, you're able to plot and plan against Sir Lewis Hamilton and nobody says anything. But when these other folk come around to Mercedes, you're not going to be able to plot and plan against them. So you just need to drive like a normal person and win on merit. And all this car that's 1.5 kilograms underweight and sneakily, we're going to sneak and do a one stop when Lewis goes out to change his tires. Like, come on, man. Like, you look stupid. You look foolish. You look dumb. You look dumb. So at first I felt bad for George that he was, openly disqualified and embarrassed in front of all the sports, fans of the world. But I don't feel bad for him now. And I don't feel bad for his team. And I don't feel bad for his strategists. You got what you deserve. You got what you deserve. And Toto knew. Like, he knew. Like, I'm looking at my notes. And I was like, why is Toto keeping his face neutral? That's what my note says. Toto keeping face neutral. Why is Toto keeping his face neutral at the end of the race when they have a Mercedes 1-2 and they've been doing so bad for years? Because Toto knew. He knew. That's why his little milquetoast statement is so just neutral. We have to take this on the chin. We made a mistake. We must go back and find out. Okay. Go back and find out why y'all was trying to sneak and do a one stop and why George's car is mysteriously 1.5 kilograms underweight. Y'all go back and find out. I can't. It's bullshit. Anyway, I'm sure this is not how Lewis wanted to win. But you know what? Put them little points in your pocket, Lewis, and go on about your business. Because when people try to plot and plan against you, it works out for your good. I guess it is time for a little summer break because there's a lot of machinations and subterfuge going on. And I know Lewis was not the only person who was like tight and salty at the paddock, because everyone else was tight and salty too. You could like see all the faces of the other drivers, like 2 to 5. Their faces were tight and salty too. What I'm really excited for, even more so now, is Drive to Survive. There's gonna be a lot to be said about this particular episode. I feel like every time I come here to do an F1 video, I'm like, ooh, what is the Drive to Survive going to be about? Because it just gets more and more dramatic by the race. It's almost like the American race for president. Every week somebody's getting shot or sat down. So this is rivaling American politics in its drama. But anywho, that's all I have to say for right now. I might come back later if there's more to be said. Like if Lewis were to come out and say something. I know like he got out of there and jumped on his plane because he was tight, you know, his face was tight, about how that went down and how he was sort of left out in terms of being offered a one-stop strategy or even just being able to make up his own mind about what he wanted to do. So I'm sure there will be more to say later, but congratulations to Lewis and boo-hoo to the rest of the Mercedes people. That's all I have to say. Peace.